This is a pretty stressful, tension-filled environment for some, and it's not for the faint of heart, I can say that.
I feel like I personally am in survival mode.
We have the states basically attacking teachers.
All I've been doing is putting out fires. All of the staff, the morale is so bad and people are feeling so beat down.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. My name is Anthony Elmo. I'm the political director here at Texas AFT. We are really excited to be joined by so many members and leaders tonight to, as really a celebration of our members who have gotten so frustrated and angry with how bad it's been going in Texas education and Texas education politics, that they are literally leaving the classroom to run for office and taking on that mantle of leadership. So we wanted to use this as an opportunity to celebrate those members and leaders and talk about what we can do to help them get out the vote in the last couple of days before the election. We're really excited to be joined by 4 great leaders tonight. We're going to turn so we can hear a lot about, hear their stories and hear where they're coming from, hear about why they chose to leave their classroom right at this moment in time to jump into the political arena and run for State Board of Education, to run for the Texas House, to run for Congress. We're really blessed to be with 4 incredible leaders tonight who are devoted to changing Texas for the better. And we know all the struggles that we've had in the state so far. I think that video really encapsulates it for all of you, that educators feel a tremendous amount of disrespect right now in their profession. They have been kicked around through COVID. They have been gone from heroes to zeros overnight in people's eyes and how they treat them. And that's a huge problem for our members and for our educators. So we are actively and angrily sick about the lack of reasonable workloads. We are frustrated by the lack and underfunding of public schools when and where it matters. And that's beyond those COVID dollars that came in just recently. Our retirees are frustrated by a lack of a secure retirement. All of you feel the paycheck getting smaller and smaller each week and each month, and how much it pays and how far it goes to pay for your family needs, for your rent, for food, for gas. We can see how our paychecks are stretched worse than they ever have been before. The disrespect from our leaders, coming from the governor to the superintendent to the principal, has reached a level that is just unbelievable right now in what educators have done throughout this pandemic to take care of these kids and work with so many of these parents who are our great allies in this work. So these are the things that we're focused on tonight. And I think this encapsulates why we are talking to our educators who are running for office right now, because the pathway to power is through getting better elected officials and stronger elected officials that represent our community. And part of that is having literal educators in office who've been in a classroom, who've been driving the bus, who've been a cafeteria worker, who's been a paraprofessional or a librarian or a school counselor, and understands the fight that is on every day in these public schools. So that's why we're bringing these folks together tonight. And we're really excited about it. So you'll see in the chat that our political organizing team is dropping links about our candidates, about our political work. Please check out those links as we're talking tonight. Share the links with your friends, share them with your colleagues, put them on social media, because the minutes are ticking down till this election is over on March 1st for many of these candidates. So time is wasting. So please jump in as much as you can. I want to bring the first person I want to speak with tonight is a person who I spoke with months ago for the first time about his decision to leave the classroom and jump into the political arena. And I'm really excited to speak with him. So I'm going to bring my friend Chris Leal forward, who is a Dallas Alliance-AFT member. I wanted to bring Chris forward to talk a little bit his experience. So Chris, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us about your teaching experience, and why you chose to run for office and jump in the first place.
Sure. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. Thank you, AFT, for putting this together. Ever since we launched our campaign, AFT has been so incredibly supportive, and so has the teaching profession overall. So my name is Chris Leal. I'm running for House District 114, which is in Dallas, from downtown Dallas in Old East Dallas area, for those that are familiar, White Rock Lake area. I'm a Dallas native. I teach a law and justice class, which is a social studies elective to 7th and 8th graders here at a magnet school in DISD. I'm a lifelong progressive Democrat. Clearly I'm a union member, but I come from a union built family. I'm in a union. My dad's in a union. My brother's in a union. My uncle, my stepdad, the whole family's in the union. So this is something that I'm really passionate about, and something that we have a lot of work to do here in Texas. I'm also a proud Tejano, and my family's lived in Texas for 300 years at this point. So look, we have a lot of work to do. Before getting into education, I have a background in economics, and so that sort of informs most of my policy. And there's a lot of, as we saw with this last legislative session, we're under assault from all sides, in our state of Texas, but particularly our education system. I mean, literally, without exaggeration, under assault from all sides. There's a nationwide teacher shortage, as everyone here on this call knows. But then here in Texas, the teachers get paid $10,000 less than average. Our students, the amount of money that we spend on our students is some of the lowest in the country. We're 43rd out of 50 in per pupil spending. Our curriculums are under attack with this, CRT hysteria and this book banning stuff, and over reliance on standardized testing. We're attacking our teacher retirement funds. I mean, literally from start to finish, every aspect of public education is under assault. We've been defunding our education budget for the last 10 years in this state. Texas at the state level used to pay 50% of the state education budget. Now that's in the high 30s. That's caused a lot of issues, not just in terms of supporting our educators and our students, but it's put strain on our municipal governments and our property taxpayers. And so, and if we're not cutting the budget at the top of the line, we're doing these stealth cuts by privatizing things and funding things off to charter schools. Fortunately, in the past, efforts for vouchers have failed, but you better believe, this CRT hysteria that we're seeing today in these banned books, this is just a prelude for another effort at privatization that we'll probably see next legislative session. Look, education is something it's interesting, especially in Texas. It cuts across party lines. There are, Democrats that aren't exactly great on education issues and privatization, and there are rural Republicans. Some of our most surprising support for strong public schools sometimes comes from rural Republicans, because they don't want charters taking over their communities or defunding their public schools. And so what we're seeing in the legislature is kind of diabolical in a way, in that we have these rural Republican allies supporting us and supporting the union, supporting public education. But right now, they're all going to get caught up in the CRT hysteria and these book bannings. And that's why they're going to come back again and take another bite at the apple next session and say, hey, how about these vouchers now? Hey, how about we, cut this funding to our public schools? Look what they're doing. And so we need people down in Austin more than ever that understand what's going on in our classrooms, that understand these issues, that understand where the fault lines are, and that understand that we have to fight if we want to save public education in Texas. And it's been, as I'm sure the other candidates up here will attest to, our race is kind of crowded. We've got 5 candidates in our race. And so, we've been knocking doors, calling people, talking to people, and everyone's the voters are a little exhausted. I might knock on a door and someone like kind of opens, you could tell they don't want to engage. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have time to talk very long. And you're like, oh, it's okay. I'm a, union member, Dallas native, progressive Democrat, DISD teacher. And they're like, oh, where do you teach? And now all of a sudden they're interested in talking to you. There's so much support out there for our teachers, and there are so many former educators or retired educators or people that have teachers in their families, and they want what's best for our public schools. And so it's really, I'm excited to be able to step up in the way that I have, and I'm so excited to see these other candidates here tonight that are stepping up, because we need educators to get down to Austin and clean up the mess that these politicians have started in our public schools.
You're right, Chris, and I want to echo that point for a second that you made about how when you speak with other members of the public and voters and tell them that you're a teacher, how much that matters, because we have been sending out literally thousands of text messages with members of Alliance-AFT who have been volunteering with your campaign and with Texas AFT to support you. That group of people has been sending literally thousands of text messages out on your behalf. When we tell people that we're teachers and supporting a teacher, we have literally gotten people to change their vote from other candidates to support you, because they say, oh, I didn't realize teachers were with Chris. Okay, he's our guy then. So that matters a lot. And I think that's a fantastic, understanding of how powerful the teacher voice is in the community, So let me ask you that, because that's interesting to all of us too, is how are other teachers reacting to you running? Like, how have your colleagues reacted to you jumping out of the classroom and into or trying to jump into the State House?
Yeah, overwhelming amounts of support, whether it's from people you're just knocking on doors, or people that, the word gets out, oh, there's a DISD teacher running. I've been to like a Mexican restaurant, and we were planning, with our team planning, and I was trying to walk out, and someone comes up and like, oh, hey, Chris, Leal, I've never met this woman before, and I'm a DISD teacher too. Like, we got to get out there. People are just really fired up about this. All the teachers in my school that I teach with my colleagues, some of them are they came out to our campaign videos. We shot our campaign video outside of the Alliance-AFT Union Hall, and I had some of my fellow teachers come out. People are really excited about this. No one gets into teaching because they're going to make a lot of money. They're here because they're passionate and they really care, and they know they can make a difference. For them to face the system that we're up against today, it really lights a fire, and people really understand that we've got to make a change.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Chris. We just greatly appreciate it. We're so excited about you running. And for folks who want to get more involved in Chris's campaign, we've been dropping links in the chat. Please check it out. If you have an extra couple bucks, he can still use some campaign money, because even if he is successful in this first round, there likely will be a runoff as well, because that's how elections go in Texas, is they never stop. And so we're going to be likely doing a runoff with Chris at the end of May, and we will want to support him again and get him past the finish line. So thank you so much for being with us, Chris. Let me now turn to another person who I don't know well, but every time she is on one of our town halls or interacting with our members, she is extremely impressive. And we've been working hard on her behalf behind the scenes. Chris, kind of pivoting from Chris to my friend Coretta, Chris mentioned about the impact of charter schools and how much the charter packs are pouring into Texas. Coretta Mallet-Fontenot has been one of the recipients of serious charter pack attack against her in her race. They have funded her opponents who are believers in charter schools and want to privatize education in Houston. And she is fighting hard against that. And so, Coretta, I want to invite you to tell us about yourself, tell us about your race. What you are literally still in the classroom. You left the classroom, like 2 hours now?
Yeah.
With us.
about 10 after 4.
Right. Tell us about yourself. Tell us why you are running. Tell us why you're trying to, stay in the classroom, but at the same time, fight for all of us on the SBOE.
So first of all, good evening, everyone. I'm Coretta Mallet-Fontenot, and as Anthony stated, I'm running for State Board of Education District 4, and this is a very important race because what I have seen in my community, Anthony, is charter schools that will literally pop up right around the corner from a traditional community, neighborhood public school. And so they are literally trying to create this brain drain on our community. They are taking funds away from public schools where kids, I have seen such dire needs of kids who need services, but the principal, was just hiding it because she didn't have the funds to really pay for those services. So she was really masking a lot. I'm in this race truly because our kids deserve better. Our teachers deserve better. Our cafeteria workers, bus drivers, paraprofessionals all deserve better. I started my career as an instructional aide here in Houston ISD. And literally, I was taking home, I think, $323 and I think maybe 14 cents or something every 5th and 20th of the month. I could not afford to live on my own. I could barely afford to make my car payments. And I certainly could not afford to, contribute towards my college tuition. This race is very important, Anthony, because our kids and our coworkers are depending on us. I've had everyone from administrators to former students to parents to community members to support my race because everyone understands that we cannot allow charter packs to take over public education. This is a right. It is a civil right. It is something I believe firmly in that our kids deserve, and that we as educators who are trained in this work, we understand how to better deliver those services that our kids so desperately need.
Absolutely. You have a very passionate story and reason for why you are trying to jump into this work right now. We just learned this in the last couple of days that the charter school PACs are pouring $2 million into State Board of Education races around the state. That is an unprecedented and shocking amount of money for State Board of Education races. These are usually races where maybe $25,000, $50,000 are spent. But thinking about a $2 million number of money flowing into these races is unbelievable. Why do you think that the charter PACs are putting this level of investment into races like yours, Coretta?
First, let me say this, Anthony. This is outrageous. It is absolutely outrageous. They are doing this to try to create, two worlds, haves and have-nots. These kids over here deserve to be educated, but these kids don't. No, we cannot have two education systems that are not equal. First of all, because we know charter schools receive extra funding. In addition to that, the reason why they want this money, because it is literally to them contracts. I've been told that some of the other candidates in my race are going around promising, well, if you elect me to this position, I'll make sure that you guys get contracts, that your company gets contracts. They want to take funds from the permanent school fund and dedicate those to giving contracts to their friends and buddies. They're trying to create another level of pay to play. We have to make sure that we don't allow that. It's not acceptable. I have heard of parents having to pay extra fees for uniforms, fees for patches, fees for textbooks. So a charter school education oftentimes really is not a free and truly free public school education, because they hit you with these fees on the back end, and then they're giving contracts to their friends, in this back door over here where you don't see that. So they're making you think that you're getting this private school education when they are really putting people who are oftentimes unqualified to even work with children in the first place. It is a complete and utter disgrace.
Absolutely. This news about these charter packs moving so hard into our State Board of Education the last couple of days has raised a lot of alarms. There are lots of people focused on this now. Texas AFT has really worked hard the last couple of days to blast this news out there to make sure that everyone that cares about public education in Texas knows that our State Board of Education cannot be bought for the highest dollar. And we will not do that. What else can we do to help you with your campaign, Coretta, from all of our friends on this call tonight? Maybe they're members that live in Houston. What can we do the last couple of days to help support you?
So in the last couple of days, we are doing outreach to voters. We're making sure that everyone understands that early voting, we still have 1 day left of early voting, and that election, well, yeah, 1 day, and then election day is going to be March the 1st. So we need campaign funds. You can go to Coretta4SBOE4.com. You can make a donation there. You can send us an email to sign up, to do phone banking, block walking, any type of support that you would like to lend. Our campaign is ready to receive that. And we absolutely, let me just say this, we absolutely thank everyone who has donated so far, who has made phone calls, text messages, who have created videos. I've had students literally drive by and say, "Oh, Miss Mallet, I saw your sign, and I just want you to know, the impact that you had on my life. I'm now enrolled at Texas Southern." And so I feel like a proud mother. So that student is going to tell other students, is going to tell her friends and family members. We have to have that one-to-one word, getting that word out. So again, thank you everyone for everything that you have done. And please go to Coretta4SBOE4.com and make your campaign donation.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We greatly appreciate it, and appreciate all the time you've spent working hard on your campaign. Transitioning from my friend Coretta to another wonderful candidate who has chosen to leave the classroom is a full-time AFT local president, while at the same time she is running for State House. I want to bring Candice Houston forward to talk about her campaign. She has also been the recipient of vicious attacks from the other side. Her opponent is the crown jewel of the charter school, and wears that with pride about trying to hand over Houston ISD to the state TEA and have the TEA come in, fire the school board, and put in a board of managers. He has been an enemy to teachers, to certified personnel, to paraprofessionals for a long time. And Candice is putting her whole effort into trying to unseat him and put an educator and a local union leader into the State House. So Candice, why don't you tell us a little bit about your campaign, why you chose to run, what motivated you, motivates you to this moment. So thank you for being with us, Candice.
Thank you, Anthony. I want to first start off by giving kudos to the fellow candidates that are on this call. Chris, Diana, Coretta, thank you, because I know exactly what you're going through right now. And I know it is not easy to have your face out there, but I wouldn't trade this for anything in the world. My name is Candice Houston. I am running for House District 142. If you don't know the area, it is Crosby, Humble, Sheldon, Atascocita, 5th Ward, Cashmere's Garden. And one of the reasons why I am running is because, number one, I could not let Harold Dutton run unopposed because he is not for public education. I come from a mother who is on this call, and I'm so happy. I'm gonna try not to cry because my mom is not very Zoom person, and she was able to get on the call. So y'all, I'm happy to have my mama here. But I watched my mom, who was a support staff. My mom was a special aid, instructional aid, and I watched my mom, and I didn't understand at the time the little money that she had. And I always wanted to know why my mom was working 2 or 3 jobs, because of the little pay she was getting as a support staff. And my mom is now a retired support staff, and she still had to work other jobs because her retirement was not good enough. And that is such a huge motivator for me, I am a single mom. I went through public education. My daughters went through public education. So public education is dear to me. I am the woman I am. Public education did not fail me, you know, and another reason is because I was really mad about the attacks on the women's reproductive rights. You know, a little tired of these men making decisions for women's bodies. You know, I know we're on here about public education, but we also must say that we need more women in the state legislature. We had such great role models for women, such as Barbara Jordan, Ann Richards. So it is so important that we have women back in this state legislature, because we know we bring a certain type of knowledge that, no disrespect to the men, we love you, but we bring something else that is missing. And in public education, because I was a teacher for 17 years, I had to work 3 jobs to make sure that my daughters had what they needed. I was a full-time teacher working at an alternative campus. I was the union president, and I also was working 2 or 3 days a week at Papados as a server. So I understand what it means not to have the money that you need to make sure that your family can have a comfortable living. So when I tell you, you have a hard worker in me, I would go to that state capitol and make sure that people know the needs of public education. I'm tired of these state reps going into these schools only for photo ops. We have all these attorneys that are state reps that does not understand what it means to work in education. That's my motivation.
Candice, thank you so much for bringing that passion to this campaign. You know, as a point of privilege, I would just like to say how much you've come into your own as a candidate in the last 3 months. You know, it's been a pleasure to see you grow as a candidate and grow as a politician. And you know, I pray that you'll continue to bring that passion to this work when you win on Tuesday. So one thing I also want to ask you, Candice, is, and you talked about this a little bit, but I think it's worth talking about some more, is talk more about the value of bringing an educator like yourself to the legislature, you know, and you can talk about too about how we see laws get passed all the time when educators aren't at the table and don't get to make those decisions. You know, what are your thoughts about that?
It is so important. I pride myself on talking about things that I definitely know a lot about. And when you have been an educator, you know, you bring different viewpoints. And right now, we don't have enough viewpoints at that state legislature. It's so important to vote for people that have worked in public ed. And it's another good thing that I have is being the proud president of Aldine AFT. So I get to hear from the issues of bus drivers. I get to hear from the issues of child nutrition workers. I get to hear the issues of counselors. And believe it or not, I'm even hearing issues of principals. Principals call me all the time that I build relationships with and was like, Candice, these are the issues that we're having. So it's so important because I get to bring those different viewpoints to the table, because I know I will have this advisory board of current educators. Even though I have been out of the classroom for 2 years, I know that I can tap into my members and fellow Texas AFT people to make sure that all voices are heard. You know, I'm so upset with Texas because we pride ourselves in being bigger and better, but we are not when it comes to public education. Our per pupil for students is $4,000 less than the national average. If we want to be bigger and better in Texas, then how about number one, we increase that per pupil to the national average. And if we really want to make noise, let's up it to more than the national average, so we can start recruiting these teachers from other states to come to this great state of Texas that we know that we are.
Absolutely. It's that kind of a fresh perspective that I think is desperately why we need a person like you in the legislature, Candice. When you have politicians in there that have been there 10 terms, 12 terms, you know, that message gets old. They don't understand what's going on with their community. They aren't plugged into the what's going on in our schools. And so that's why we need somebody like you who is directly so close to your community and understanding what's going on in the legislature. So thank you so much for being with us tonight, Candice. We dropped your website into the chat. If there are Houston-based members on this call who need something to do the next couple of days, volunteer for Candice. Get out to her block walks, get out on her phone banks, talk to her about coming to some staging locations, some polling locations, to be out there handing out literature for her if you can over the next few days. So we still have time. This is a close race. Harold Dutton may have more money than you, but he doesn't have more passion than you. And we hope that can make the difference in these next few days. So thank you for being with us, Candice.
And Anthony, I want to just say one more thing, what I also know. I could not even afford the insurance when I was a teacher because I was a mom with 2 kids. I could not afford taking out the insurance at the district. I had to look for private insurance because I could not afford the insurance. So when I tell you, you will have somebody who knows and understands personally on increasing these salaries and decreasing these insurance costs, you have that person in me.
Absolutely. The cost, it almost costs too much to be a teacher these days. And God knows how our paraprofessionals and other certified staff get through the month with how their pay is in comparison to how much things cost. So we know you understand those struggles, and that's amazingly important. So I want to bring on another friend and educator who really understands these issues as well. Diana Martinez-Alexander is a special education diagnostician in Cy-Fair ISD and is a proud member of her local union, Cy-Fair AFT. She chose to run for Congress in a tough year for Democrats. This is not going to be an easy year for Democrats for a million reasons, but Diana chose to put her name on a ballot and stand up for her community in northwestern Houston and that area up there. After redistricting that area, it's a new district that's been created there. And Diana is running in a new district. And if you think a state house race or an SBOE race is hard and expensive, just think about running for Congress. Everything gets bigger, more expensive. The stakes are higher. So Diana, tell us about yourself. Tell us why you chose to run and get into this battle for fellow educators.
Right. So I know that educators are at heart public servants. We love our families, we love our kids, we love our schools, and we're here because we see the grand picture of what our communities can be, and we work every day to create those communities within our classrooms and within our schools. So my name is Diana Martinez-Alexander, and I am running for the newly created Congressional District 38. And I will tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you, this was not on my bingo card for 2022. I did run for office in 2020 for county commissioner and ran a very strong grassroots people-powered campaign. I was the dark horse. No one really thought I was going to make an impact, but I actually won the primary. Then the pandemic hit and things kind of shifted, but I made it. I moved the needle in that race and got to talk about some things that really concern our families, our communities, because too often people don't get the voice that they need at the table when we're talking about solving problems. And so there's a completely different perspective that I can bring to the table, being a daughter of immigrants, being a veteran educator. This is my 23rd year. Being a woman who has had a lot of difficulty. I was fortunate enough to work after school programs on my campus and summer school and anything you can think of, so I could buy a home for me and my daughter when I was a single mom. But those things are more and more challenging for educators when you don't have the right compensation. We're too focused on high stakes testing and driving up the pressure in the classroom, and it's just unsustainable. So the only reason why I got into this race is because I did not want the Republican Party to automatically think that they were going to have a cakewalk and just get this seat without a fight. I'm a fighter. I will push. I taught middle school. It takes a lot to scare me, right? So I am excited about the possibility of making whoever the Republican candidate really work for this. I am going to push, and I'm not going to relent. I'm going to be having those conversations with people across the aisle, because the things that I'm fighting for, they're for families, they're for communities. It's not a partisan thing. I want to make sure that kids have access to a strong public school in their neighborhoods, because that is the heart of a community. And when we talk about these high stakes testing, we talk about in HISD specifically the possibility of campuses being closed, the possibility of principals being shuffled in and out because they can't perform, and it creates this toxic culture of no one can win, and the teachers feel frustrated, and the kids start to feel that impact along with everything else that we've been dealing with in the pandemic. It's completely unacceptable. So I wanted to circle back to something that Chris said about CRT, because I think it's only a matter of time that CRT is going to be coming up, or the supposed fight against CRT is going to be coming up more in SBOE conversations. It's going to be coming up in tech sludge. So my friend Michelle Palmer is running in District 6, and she's spoken on multiple occasions about just even the conversation about consent. These are things that we need to add to the curriculum. Until recently, they didn't have anything on environmental science that was like climate change, because they wanted to erase that. When we're not having those conversations about issues that matter, we're essentially silencing any possibility of change. And so at the local levels, when it comes to state board races, to State Board of Education races, to Texas House, to Congress, all of these levels matter when it comes to creating policy that will enable our communities to have the best public education possible. And if we're not talking about land commissioner also, because they control a lot of the land assets that end up funding public education, then again, that's another piece of the puzzle. There's just so much to talk about, but it's all related and pushed by this narrative that somehow public educators have been scapegoated into polluting the minds of kids, when really we're just trying to show them what's going on, and kids ask questions and they want to know. It's just that simple. So it's really frustrating. Our librarians, I can't imagine being a librarian right now. Just praise them, because they're dealing with so much stress and trying to do the right thing. And book banning is not acceptable to me, but a lot of people jump through many hoops to kind of justify it. So I don't know. I'm overcome with so many things to talk about.
What do you think because running for Congress, you're going to be confronted with a whole different set of issues.
Yeah.
At the federal level. What do you think is the most important thing you will focus on if you're a member of the next Congress? What do you think is going to be the key thing to you as a new congressperson that you would be focusing on?
So, I want to make sure that I'm looking out for my constituents. And so I want to preface this by saying that oppressors are not a protected class. Okay. So if we're talking about the attacks on the LGBTQ community in terms of book banning, in terms of trying to, like in Florida, they have that don't say gay law that's being taken to the Senate. I think that we have to make sure and make very clear explicitly that we're going to protect our students and staff from the LGBTQ community by adding that stipulation and that group to the Civil Rights Act of 1965 to include public accommodations. And that would include schools, that we don't need to have attacks on our trans students by the governor and Dan Patrick and all of those, like Paxton, who want to kind of shape this frenzy, right, of energy towards things that are a non-issue in order to cover up what they're trying to do by power grabs and making us pay $9,000 per megawatt hour for energy during the freeze. They're trying to cover up all of these things by making trans kids a scapegoat. And so if we're talking about protecting our students, protecting our communities, we have to start with that. And so that I think would be one focus.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Diana. That's an amazing thing to focus on and incredibly important right now because of the just astonishing discrimination that we've seen in Texas in the last few years against trans kids and trans families. What the governor just did is appalling, to direct the DSHS to insert themselves into parental decisions between themselves and their children. That's an astonishing power grab for people who for years have claimed that they are for parents' rights, and that's a shocking thing that they just did. So we're glad to hear you won't stand for it in Congress. So
right. And I just wanted to add, it's other things as well. Like, you remember the young man who got in trouble for having nail polish, or the other student in Montgomery County who couldn't go to school because his hair was long. These are all issues of the family decisions. And so I just want, and in addition to that, when we're talking about people choosing their gender identity on paperwork, is that something that's going to be standardized to allow for people to choose their identity, or is it going to be just a binary situation, and that doesn't fit our society anymore?
These are all important issues that we need serious people to address, and not carnival barkers and charlatans, who often run for office. And so we're proud to have real educators, real people who are living real lives in our communities running for office. None of you are lawyers. None of you are rich, lobbyists and things like that. You all are real in the classroom educators, or very close to former educators. And we're so appreciative that you're willing to do this. And thank you so much for being with us tonight, Diana. I have one more friend I want to bring forward just for a quick hello. Because we have another a member who is running for Justice of the Peace in Houston, Sonia Lopez. Sonia, I wanted to give you a chance just to say hi and tell folks about your campaign if you would like to. If she's still with us. But if not, that's okay. I'll just tell folks that Sonia Lopez is another great person to look at, another educator who is running for office and is running for Justice of the Peace in the Houston area. So keep a look on your ballots for her as well. So I want to thank all the candidates tonight. I think this has been an amazing experience for me to watch this happening tonight. don't leave yet if you are jumping off this Zoom yet, because I'm hoping that folks are fired up enough to want to take action. Our union is all about action. I think to myself sometimes that which is a reason that Texas AFT and AFT in general is so is such a different union and association than other organizations in Texas, because we're action oriented. We are not sitting idly by and letting things happen in Texas without trying to change things. And a lot of the folks on this call are willing to change things by getting into these political races. So I want to ask folks that are still on this call, if you are willing to stay with us for another couple of minutes, we're going to send texts out tonight